June 5th school board meeting, getting ready to close out a school year here. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to those of you who showed up here tonight, and welcome to those of you who are viewing from home. Stan Frieda is not here tonight. He has been excused. He's on assignment for the school board. He's at the Reaching Higher New Hampshire Summit on College and Career Readiness. So he'll be reporting back to us about his time spent there this evening. Public participation. Is there any public participation at this time? Anyone? No? Okay. Approval of minutes, May 15th, non-public, session 1. So moved by Mrs. Cardinal, second by Mrs. Moran. Oh, sorry, that was actually Mrs. McElhenney. Any errors or omissions, things we need to correct on these?
No.
No? All set? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. May 15th, non-public, session 2.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran, second by Mrs. Cardinal. Any discussion on these? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Non-public, session 3 for May 15th.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Cardinal,
Second.
second by Mrs. Moran. Any discussion on these? All those in favor?
Aye.
We've got the sealed minutes that Ms. Vaughn presented with us earlier. So that's non-public session 4, sealed minutes for May 15th.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Cardinal,
Second.
second by Mrs. Moran. Any discussion on these? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes of May 15th, public session from, May 15th, sorry. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Cardinal, second by Ms. McElhenney. Any discussion on these?
Nice job.
Kelly's gonna give me a plus for that one. Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. And then we have minutes of our public hearing, May 15th, 2017.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Cardinal, second by Mrs. Moran. Pretty short.
I did make one change, just so that Kelly's aware. In the header, it had listed the 18th, and I changed that to the 15th. So, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure that on
Catch, I didn't see
whatever copy you had, that was amended as well.
I would sort of like added to my comments, and you may have left them out for a reason, Kelly, but I would like for my comments toward the end of that public hearing to reflect that I said social media was not the best way to get informed about what's happening here at the school district. I think too many folks rely on that. So if we can add that, I'd appreciate it, because I did say that. Anything else? Okay. Vote to approve those as amended? Aye? Okay. Okay, new business. We have our student representative, Brian, is going to give us a little report, Tigers to Tigers. Had some questions for us about a particular policy here at the high school.
Yep,
Brian?
I assume I'm going to start with actually the report on current events.
Okay.
Which is something, for those who don't know, that's just something I do, is an obligation that I need to catch everyone here up on what's going on in the school building. And I always type something up for that. I passed one to our secretary already. This is actually rather just status quo. As the 2016 to 2017 school year closes, the annual activities associated with the end of the year will proceed as expected, of course. The spring concert occurs this Wednesday at 6. Sorry. and 6 p.m. The dinner held for Farmington High School's top 10 graduates occurs the following day, Thursday, also at 6, and the sports banquet is held the same day. As always, the end of the school year holds the final exams, and the dates for such exams are as follows. For the seniors taking final exams, as they take them a week early, periods 1 and 2 occur on Monday, June 12th, 3 and 4 on Tuesday, June 13th, 5 and 6 on Wednesday, June 14th, and 7 on Thursday, June 15th, with makeups following. For other classes, as in like the 3 below them, periods 1 and 2 will hold exams on Tuesday, June 20th, 3 and 4 on Wednesday, June 21st, 5 and 6 on Thursday, June 22nd, and period 7 on Friday, June 23rd. As always, the first exam of the day is administered from 8 to 9:30 a.m. and the second from 9:45 to 11:15 p.m. Rather standard, and makeups regularly follow after period 7 exams. Last chapel is held on Friday, June 16th at 9 a.m. following the last day of senior events, and the graduation date is set for Saturday, June 17th. To my knowledge, don't quote me on this, 10 a.m. Okay. As far as the questions go, do you have copies by chance of the questions? And if not, I have a spare copy in here.
We do have them, yes.
Okay. Good, because I don't know what happened, because I could have sworn I had a spare copy. Yep, it's in the, yep, and there's another set back here. All right. Dave, I was supposed to ask you who, if you had any comments or responses to that, or would you like me to ask these one at a time?
Did the board have a,
I kind of wrote one up.
okay. Actually, why don't you ask them one at a time, Brian, so people at
All right,
home
and
can
then-
understand
yep, and
what
then
you're
we'll,
asking us?
And before you ask the questions, maybe if you could give a little bit of context to the people who are watching
yes.
so that they understand where the questions are coming from.
So earlier on this school year, for those who don't know, the Tigers to Tigers group, as I had covered in an earlier meeting, we decided, we wanted to look at the hat policy. This is because the overwhelming majority of the student body is of the opinion that the hat policy needs changing, as they believe wearing hats is essentially a form of expression and is sort of Hessian and should be covered by freedom of expression. Some comments I've heard reflect that while in previous times, for lack of a better term, wearing hats indoors and in general was widely considered disrespectful, many believe that with the change of opinion over time as it passes, this is not as actually not as big a problem anymore. Tigers to Tigers some time ago, actually, for any who it would concern, decided to ask the student body for their opinion on this matter because a lot of them seem to be in favor of changing the hat policy so that they could wear hats, for example, in class. Although many students did acknowledge that there are definitely times throughout the day where wearing hats would be disrespectful and would need to be taken off, such as during the Pledge of Allegiance or an assembly, the overwhelming majority of students we surveyed and received surveys back from actually stated that they did want to change in the hat policy. We had 147 say yes, 18 say no, and 8 did not give an opinion. So if I would be permitted, I have copies of the survey that if permitted I could pass out to each of you.
I'd like to see it, sure. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to pass one down to her. I'm going to give it to one each. We have plenty of copies. I'll get up and pass them around.
Or you can just pass them down.
Oh,
and we'll
okay,
go that
actually,
way.
yeah. All right. Down to Miss Cardinal, down to
Or just give the whole stack and we'll
Okay.
each take one.
There might be extras. I'll give you that warning in advance.
Okay.
I also have examples of some filled out surveys on both yes and no opinions, if anyone would like them. Would anyone like to hear descriptions and reasoning rationales directly from students as to why yes and why no?
Sure.
All right, I'm going to pass you the yeses. There might be a few extras, and the nos might run out before we reach the end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
We can share.
Oh,
Brian.
18 no, actually.
All right.
Yeah, but we only have 3 no's, so I'll pass 1, 2.
Because they're all different.
Oh, they're all different. It's okay, Brian. We'll share around.
All right, I'm going to pass 1 to the secretary, and then these for you guys. I will admit, I did look through them, but I don't know them. I didn't end up having the time to read all the individual responses. So I have a general idea of some yeses versus nos. And the Two Tigers group upon this reception, this realization that yes, the vast majority of students want to see a change in the hat policy for various reasons. We decided to each list questions to submit to the board for review, and then we decided on which ones we wanted to ask. We did have one that was rejected, but the others are as follows, and I'm going to ask them individually, and then we can get some responses, if I may. The first, if I may? Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't interrupting anyone. The first thing here is what history is there to this hat policy? Why at the moment is the current hat policy in place? I want to make sure, just to be specific, I'm citing policy number 5132, section 6.
I'm not sure I personally know the history to that policy.
I was curious.
I think my guess is the gist of it probably outdates many of us. I don't know, do you have a stance from your office?
I know that it has come up a couple of times over the course of the years. I'm not staunchly against changing it, but my job is to enforce policy, not to write it, so.
And not having looked at it lately, I would assume that the current policy is that we just don't allow it. Is that correct, Mr. Dezokis?
Correct.
Yes.
Actually, the policy I can read out here, section 6. Hats, hoods, sunglasses, choke collars, studded wristbands, studded collars, and chains may not be worn in the school building during the school day. And to clarify, it's just hats we're talking about.
Today.
Huh? Oh, yeah.
Today.
I can't imagine anyone's going to want to drag chains around the school building.
You never
I mean,
know.
maybe if they're doing like a Charles Dickens kind of play. Your partner, Jacob Marley.
Love the illusion, Brian.
I love it.
Thank you.
All
Make
right.
some people proud.
You want to do number 2? Or
Yes, sorry. Is currently, I know originally was beforehand, currently is wearing a hat in school in a general context considered disrespectful?
Does the board have an opinion on that?
I think it is. I kind of researched it a little bit. My husband was military, so wearing a hat in any building with a flag outside of it is considered disrespectful once you enter the building. So I believe that it's disrespectful to the building and the flag to wear a hat inside.
All right.
I'm more open to interpretation. I do agree that during the pledge and assemblies and things like that, it definitely would be disrespectful, but I'm open to perhaps a little bit more leeway in other areas.
All right. All right. What adverse effects do you believe hats could possibly have in a school environment, such as safety, distraction, or perhaps using them for cheating, etc.?
I hadn't actually thought about the cheating part until I approached my students in 7th grade today, and they came right up with that one.
Really?
Writing the answers on the brim of your hat. I would have never considered that.
Like their shoes as well.
True?
Imagine that.
Shoes are still a necessity.
Of course. Oh, I'm sorry. Tugged a bit on my cord.
I was just thinking if someone were to sleep, it's easier to just kind of tilt your hat down a little bit and not really know.
Well, and not be focused on the teacher, too. I mean, if the brim of your hat is in your face, how can your teachers know that you're paying attention? That you're focused?
When I throw a hat on, I'm usually going to a place that's somewhat informal. I was in a funeral home today. I would never wear a hat because to me that occasion calls for some formality where a hat isn't worn. Church. And I throw school into that mix. So the adverse effect that I see is that we send a message that school's just kind of an informal thing we have to do. I mean, how relaxed do we want to get? In my opinion, not not that relaxed. Next question.
Have there been issues with hats in the past that have led to problems in the present day?
I can just see kids pulling off kids' hats and being a disturbance that way, but that's the symbolization of a hat, you know, affiliations.
I'm not sure. I'd have to ask principals, building administrators. I can't recall one in my own experience, but I was at the elementary level, so that was less of an issue.
Right. Right. Anything more, or do I proceed to
Go
question?
ahead, go ahead, bud.
All right, if you feel the hat policy should remain as is, do you feel a compromise could be reached, such as wearing hats during lunchtime only, or something to a similar effect?
I could get behind that compromise at lunch
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
informal times.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I would be okay with it being a classroom rule. You know, hats in the hallway between classes, before and after school, during free time. But, you know, the teacher of the classroom, the decision maker of the classroom, the adult, should decide for their own space
So-
what is acceptable to them when it comes to the students.
A case-by-case basis?
We need a
Right.
decision there.
I think that just being in a classroom and, you know, teacher A says yes and teacher B says no, I think we need some continuity to policy. If it's a policy, I think it needs to be clear.
And that's where I think the policy would be clear. Inside the classroom, it's up to the teacher. Outside the classroom, allowed. I've seen plenty of school policies doing exactly like that. They do that along the lines with cell phone use, I think, in many other school districts. But that's a different topic.
If you look at it from the view as it being a privilege rather than a policy, and I do like the idea of it being discretionary to the teacher and their room, but also in the regards to if there is an issue regarding the student and their hat, then as a privilege, it should be able to be revoked on a case-by-case.
All right, number 6, under what circumstances do you feel hats should not be worn, such as what was listed already, the pledge and assemblies?
Was it the majority of the Tiger group felt that assemblies were a place where a hat should not be worn?
This was actually something that was brought up when we were discussing, like, for example, when we first got the surveys back in, one of them did say, yes, but not during things such as a pledge. We started thinking that on our own. And this was, the discussion regarding assemblies was actually a brief one not had during one of our meetings. I don't remember whether it was between, like, a classmate of mine and I, or a fellow Tiger member of mine and I. What's written as far as the question goes is just such as the pledge. I ad-libbed the assembly part because that occurred to me,
Okay.
I will admit.
If you're sitting behind someone with a large brim, it might be difficult to view.
Any other thoughts on that, folks? I think, Brian, was it, after getting some feedback from the board, was it the group's intention to maybe go to and talk to the policy committee? Or maybe there hasn't been that plan yet?
I'm not entirely sure we've gotten that far. As far as I know, and Ho was, we were going to bring this up to you, and then as far as that goes, a proposal actually was typed up by Mrs. Curtis and and I will willingly admit and take responsibility for the fact that I'm not certain whether that was to be posed before you or the policy committee. What I remember asking was, when was this voted on? And I was told that would be when you decided.
And I think really you were kind of gauging the board's receptiveness. Would you entertain it going to the policy committee? Or is this something that if the board as a whole is opposed to even considering, then we probably don't need to go further?
Well, I would entertain any student group that comes up with an idea and has some concerns and questions about a policy. I would always be in support of them going to the policy committee. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'll support the change if that's what's recommended, but I think it's that's why we have a policy committee in place. So, and that's a more intimate discussion, where you can get into a little bit more, you know? So that would be my recommendation, is to go to that level.
Okay.
I don't
And so
know,
we
does
can-
anybody disagree?
No, that makes sense.
Okay. So I'll get with Brian and we'll work on getting that time set, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Brian, excellent job.
Thank
Is
you.
there a question?
Are we allowed to talk about, I've never been to one of these meetings, so.
Absolutely, but if
Excuse
you,
my ignorance.
if you want to come up and talk, if you could just grab the microphone. This is so
Or-
the folks at home,
or come
sit
sit at
right,
the
you
table.
could sit right there in Mr. Frieda's spot, Patty, so that, just so that folks can at home can hear you.
Sit there?
Yeah. you can sit right
This
there.
microphone or that
We do
microphone?
have.
It's just really so the folks at home can hear.
Yeah, we do have 2 staff members and actually another representative from the Tigers to Tigers group
see that.
have come today for support.
Yes,
I remember you made a comment at the May 1st meeting about getting him involved.
yes.
I still have to show him that.
Go ahead. Mrs. Stewart, go ahead.
There are just some things that, if you wouldn't mind listening to me, I would like to address about this whole hat policy. One of the things that was brought up was that the military can't wear hats and, well, I really am into that because I have a retired husband who was military. Both my boys are military. That makes no difference to me as a civilian on the outside world. Another thing, I don't know if anybody realizes, this is why I'm in support of this whole thing. I don't know if anybody realizes the man hours that we put into telling kids to take off their hat. And it's not that they're being disrespectful, they're just being them. And it is an identity thing. And personally, I think they should be able to identify. If that's how they want to identify with themselves, then that's what they should be able to do. But of course, I also believe that, as with anything else, there are restrictions or what have you. I don't think there should be any large brimmed hats. I think a baseball cap would be fine. And I know a lot of the girls like to wear those little, yeah, what are they called?
Beanies?
Yeah, they knit caps that they tuck their hair up in. Okay, so now you've gone through half of the day, and you have your little hungry lunch people coming to have lunch, and you say to them, take your hat off, please. And they do it. They will do it. They don't give me any trouble, but their hair's a mess. And it's out to here, and so now they're having a bad hair day, which, well, you know, that's not good for them either. And I think one more maybe restriction or one more place that you wouldn't want them to wear them is when the flag is flying at half-staff. And I think when they enter Mr. DeJocas's or Mrs. Tatro's office, I think that's a good time to take them off too, because that's going to teach them. We still want to teach them, we don't want to give in to them, but it's who they are. This is 2017, it's who they are, we can't help that. The policy of being respectful with a hat, I think it's just gone by its day, and that's just my opinion. I don't know if that helps you think about things any better, but I am definitely in support of the kids. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't think about that, the amount of time the adults are reminding the students to follow the dress code.
I'll help you, Brian. Hi, I'm Dawn Curtis, and I've been helping Brian with Tigers to Tigers. We did come up with the idea to try to help, the students with the current hat policy. And like Mrs. Stewart said, it is a constant battle. Not every student, but take your hat off, please. Take your hat off, please. And they will do it out of respect when you ask them to. They do. But again, a lot of the students wear it because it's a comfort zone to them. Most of our students, it's a comfort zone. It's who they are. And in some ways, to me, it helps them feel that security where they might not have it in other areas. The same with the girls when they wear the knitted hats. And you ask them to remove them. And well, you can't ask a gentleman, remove your hat, and not ask the girl to remove her knitted hat. You just can't be that double-sided. And I understand where you were talking about having guidelines, well, maybe during lunchtime they could wear their hat, or if they leave this classroom, they could put their hat on, but then take it off. That's not gonna work. It's kinda one way or the other, because that's where we are now, you know. Take your hat off, take your hat off. They do take their hat off in the in the classroom, but then they put it on in the hallway, then they forget, and they walk into the classroom, and then you have the teacher take your hat off. So, but I do believe, like Mrs. Stewart said, you know, my son was military too. It has kind of gone past, but not to be disrespectful in saying that, but I really think that our students know when that respectful time is there. That you don't have to say when the pledges started, take your hat off. They do it. Assemblies, you might have to say, remember to take your hat off. But I think, you know, we're trying to teach the students, you know, to become young adults, to take that responsibility. And I just feel that they should have the chance to do that. And so I hope that we can try to get this passed for the, you know, for the students. So thank you.
Thank you. Principals reports. Who's up?
Hello.
Hi.
I have several recognitions from the last 2 months because I was not here the month before. I wanted to recognize Kim Smith. She did our art show in April for us. She spent 3 long days setting up, holding the art show on the Saturday of April, and then she also had the art show again on our curriculum fair, and it was wonderful. The kids had their pottery pieces out, they had artwork up, the parents loved coming in and seeing it, and then they get to take home their pottery pieces, so that was great, and she did a wonderful job. We held our second concert. Mrs. Bondi had our second and third graders held their concert here at the high school, and they did a wonderful job. She also has started a third grade chorus, so we have, I think it was probably 20 kids who've been able to come and see her at different times, and they're learning a couple of different songs, and they sang at both that concert and they sang at our leadership day, so she's kind of giving them another opportunity to get some more music in, as she puts it. And they just did a wonderful job. We found that in talking with Mrs. Bondi, we found that the new format that we've had has worked a lot better. We've had just as many people, but it's not as crowded and it's not as dangerous. But it has worked very well to have fewer people, fewer grade levels in one concert. It seems to work much better. Our leadership team did a great job planning for our curriculum fair. I had mentioned it at our last one that we were going to have that. We had over 350 people come to our leadership day, our curriculum fair. They came and made I Spy bottles, and they made dinosaurs, and they had a great time. The parents all commented that it was great to see what the kids were working on in class, and then see some of the science things that they're going to be starting to work on. I also wanted to thank the Unified Arts teachers because they manned all of those tables where all of those activities were being done. So they were the ones that were making the dinosaurs and making the I Spy bottles, and so they really stepped up and helped out with that. After setting up their classrooms, they went and helped each grade level to do those activities. I did see a couple of you at our leadership day, so we did have a good leadership day. We had almost 80 people come to our leadership day. We did our tours of our building and had a great time showing off some of the things the kids are working on in the class. The firefighters and our SRO loved going to the kindergarten class and playing games with them. They had a great time, and the kids loved to see them and see them coming in and joining in with them. I did want to mention that at our leadership day, and Mrs. Cardinal may have to help me out. We did recognize Cindy Hun. She was recognized by the PTA as one of 25 teachers nationally for being an outstanding teacher. So we did recognize her at Leadership Day for that, and she received her award from the PTA, National PTA. So she does a great job with the PTA and has done a lot to make that school connection with PTA so that we're always in the know and we always know what's going on. So she's done a wonderful job. I also wanted to take a minute to thank the staff. After 2 years of being principal at the school, they have really stepped up and helped me to become a better administrator, and just we've done a lot over the last few years in working on curriculum and developing some of these things that I talked about, and they have just been wonderful, and I wanted to take a minute to just thank them for everything they've done. They've just been extremely helpful to me. On our upcoming events, we currently have 43 students that are registered for our kindergarten screening. It is slightly low, but we do sometimes get 20 kids over the summer. But at this point, we do have 43 registered. And then I did have a field trip to add that the third graders are visiting the Goodwin Library. One class goes down every couple of days, and they have a partnership with them all through the month of June. So that is another field trip that we're doing. And then last, I have 3 people that are retiring, and I just wanted to briefly mention them. I have Karen Natal in the kindergarten, who's been with us. This will be her 34th year. And then I have April Tierney in the 3rd grade. This will be her 31st year. And then one of our paraprofessionals, Joyce Gullison, she's been with the district for 8 years. So we have some really talented people that are going on to more relaxing things than being with us. But I wanted to wish them well in their retirements.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for recognizing the retirements.
Hello. So we've been busy at Henry Wilson. Miss Laurel Vashon has reignited our National Junior Honor Society, and we had our first induction. This spring we had 15 students. We set it up in the library, not really knowing what we were expecting for a crowd, and had to set up probably 30 more chairs. We still had some standing room. So we had a really good turnout. It was very well organized. She did an amazing job. She prepped the kids. They were very professional and excited. And we have our new banner, and we're all set to continue the tradition. We also have Miss Christine Bartlett, who has taken on our student council this year, and she's doing some really awesome things with our students. She's in the middle of planning the 7th and 8th grade semi-formal, and comes to me every day with some new details she's adding, and has been really active with the group of kids that she has. They meet a couple times a month, and they've done things like redo the flowers on our sign, kept up with that, as well as 2 other classes. Miss Vashon's class and Miss Palmer's class have been working to kind of take care of our sign this year too. So it just looks nice when people are coming up to our building. Mrs. Peabody just had her athletic banquet for middle school. She had a really good turnout for baseball and softball. They did a cookout, and it looked very nice in the gym. She had tablecloths, and she always makes it look professional. We just finished our schedule for next year today with our scheduling team that has been working tirelessly every Monday for the past month and a half. To try to make a student-centered schedule work the best it can, and sort of think out of the box and out of everyone's comfort zone a little bit, and to add some really cool things. So we're really excited to present that to our staff on Wednesday. I also have 2 teachers that are retiring that have spent quite a long time in Farmington. We have Miss Deb Thorpe and Miss Pat Hodder. So art is Miss Hodder's, I think, wanting to pass her beautiful art room off to somebody very deserving. And so there's more to come on that in a couple of weeks. We have our Step Up Day on June 15th, where we've coordinated with the high school and Valley View. We have our semi-formal on June 21st. That's for grades 7 and 8. Our 8th grade moving up ceremony is June 22nd, and Ms. DePalma is working with Ms. Gould to organize that for our students, and obviously our last day, the 23rd. Our 5th grade is going to 2 field trips next week. On the 13th and 14th, they're going to a water treatment plant and then the UNH floating lab for part of their ecology week. And the 7th grade went to Mytina last week, and they got rave reviews from the staff and their teachers of how well behaved they were. So that's really positive to hear about our students. We had our fifth and sixth grade DARE graduation last week. We had 120 students graduate from our first class of DARE in quite a while. We had Chris Kirkinson from the Sheriff's Department, Stratford County, and we also had Detective Tammy Thorpe from Middleton. And so they both taught the two classes, and it was awesome, the rave reviews from the kids and the staff, and they raved about our kids and said they brag about them when they go back to their departments. And things like that. We're working on how to improve RTI for next year through our upcoming data meetings. And Mrs. Peabody and I went to the second round of the Turnaround for Talent Leadership. We went to Arizona. And so we're working with our consultant that we have through that to create a strategic plan for Henry Wilson for the next couple of years, and retaining some good teaching staff to be here with us. And so we'll be working on that with our teacher leader group next year. So you'll be hearing more about that. And we had a training with Mahesh Sharma last week. Was that just last week?
It was, yeah.
And our teachers already have the stuff in their hands, and they're getting to work and getting going, and it's really cool. They're already seeing some really awesome things happening in their classrooms. So that's about it.
Anything from the board? Can I have a motion to approve the Sanford water treatment?
So moved.
Sorry, we have to approve out-of-state stuff. It's just a technicality.
Okay.
So moved by Penny, second by Linda. All those in favor? Aye.
And just so you know, we are going there because one of our teachers on the fifth grade team, her husband runs that plant. So
So we have an inside.
Yes.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good catch, Mr. Shagan.
I'm so glad the two of you have to go after Brian, because that's a tough act to follow. I feel that when on graduation day, so thank you. So Connor, thank you for coming tonight, and I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add, but maybe you can if you want to. Otherwise, Brian pulled you along. I first would like to recognize our top 10 students for this year. Our top 10 dinner, as Brian stated, it would be Thursday, and so we'll be at the Granite Steak and Grill at 6 p.m., so we'll look forward to that. It's always a great evening for those guys to come and talk, and for you guys to meet them or talk with them about their experience here at Farmington High School, and also the district, but where they're going and their aspirations moving forward. So I'd like to recognize Caitlin Davidson, Rebecca Gerlach, Zach Gilman, Max Horwitz, Josh Howard, Danielle LaPierre, Brooke Marston, Jenna Smart, Jake Storman, and Dan Wood. Those are our top 10 going forward. I'd also like to recognize Steve Freeborn. As I mentioned to you earlier in the year, Steve and I met to discuss putting together a presentation for the New Hampshire Association of Schools Principals annual conference, and our submission was selected. So Steve and I will be heading up north for the 27th to present our work in our English department. So it's a pretty exciting opportunity for us to get out there and to share with other school districts the work that we've done around electives in the area of English. So we'll be looking forward to the feedback from the various schools. Some of the upcoming events, again, we had our senior banquet this past Saturday on the Winnipesaukee Bell. It was well attended. It was a little chilly at first, but the captain did a nice job of getting us into an area where it was calm and actually quite nice, and a beautiful sunset before we headed back into Wolfboro for the evening. Special thanks to Shonda Tebow and Aubrey Palacio, the senior advisors, but also Allison Lowe and Linda Sheff, who were also as chaperones, and Kathy and myself also attended that. Our STAR testing finished up last week, and so we'll be taking a look at those results and then sharing them with the faculty and staff. Last Friday, we did meet. We had two different things that took place on our professional development day. The first was the morning was spent with a gentleman who works for Enriching Students. Enriching Students is going to be the software that we're going to use for our sort of intervention support block next year. It was a 2.5-hour presentation And it was actually, I thought it was phenomenal. It was a great opportunity for our faculty and staff to listen to a person who was not only an administrator part of it, but also there was a teacher who was in the trenches using the software and kind of be able to provide feedback for questions that people had. It could have probably gone for the entire day had we had the opportunity because of the dialogue that was going back and forth, not only amongst the staff, but also with the presenters. So we do appreciate enriching students coming in and doing that for us. The second half of the day, we continued our work on the NES&C self-study. We are in that process and gathering information and collecting the data that we need to begin writing each standards report. Ruth Ellen and I finished the application process. We'll be sending that in, and the goal will be that in the spring of 2019, we'll be having our on-site. So we'll get more feedback from them once we submit that, whether it'll be the spring of 2019 or the fall. That'll be up to NES&C to make that determination. The 2017-18 schedules, the master schedule is all but complete. I would say 99% of it. All of the students have met with their guidance counselor to review their schedules and make any necessary changes. We are putting the finishing touches to that for our incoming freshmen. So on step-up day, the incoming freshmen will receive their schedules, and all the upperclassmen would have made all the changes that they need to make. So we'll be ready to go on that part of it. So yearbooks are done. Congratulations to Allison Lowe and the yearbook staff. They did a wonderful job. This year, they dedicated the yearbook to the three ladies in the office, to Ms. Hagar, Mrs. Jansen, and Mrs. Moody, for all of their work and efforts, even though they're the behind-the-scenes individuals, but they were presented with that the other day. Actually, it was, they came in, I think it was late Friday, so we were able to get them, because we gave the seniors theirs on Saturday night. So they were surprised, but also very excited to be part of that first time for the three of them, which was nice to see, so well deserving as well. So. And you'd have your tickets for graduation, so that's your parking, and if your significant others are going to join, please send Cheryl an email, so we'll have seats for everybody.
Thank you.
Any questions on that? Thank you.
I'm working on menu.
What's that?
Working on menu.
Yes.
Before we move into special education report, let me just kind of ask a quick question, and maybe it's not so quick, and if it's not so quick, we could put it off to a future meeting, but it's sort of a question about all three schools. How many consultants are we working with on a regular basis in each building? Any?
So we have.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm not talking about special education consultants. I'm talking more like leadership consultants, curriculum consultants, things like that. People that are helping us with climate and culture. What?
NES consultants, do we still have?
NES, I guess, yeah.
We worked with Mahesh Sharma just this last week in math. That was a K-8.
And so, if we're going to get too deep, then tell me, and we can save it for another meeting. I guess what I'd like to know is, I don't have a general sense of who we're working with, what their qualifications are. How can I put this nicely? Searching. We've worked with consultants in past years that I'm not sure we should have spent too much money on. I'd like to know people's qualifications. I'd like to know where they're coming from, who they are, what do they do for us? What kind of evidence do we have that tells us what they do for us is worth the money? You know? Because we send a lot of paychecks out to consultants over the years, and it just didn't see the bang for the buck. I guess that's...
Yeah. It's probably a larger discussion, and as far as my having all of the data to hand to you, because it's not something we discussed ahead of time.
I know, sorry.
That's okay.
I just started thinking about it.
But certainly, I'm happy to bring to you any information that you'd like. Currently, we're working with consultants from the DOE and the Northeast Regional Center through that Talent for Turnaround Leadership group that Jess and I have been working with. We went to DC in December. The group went with Cheryl and Jess and Cynthia went to Arizona last month.
Why don't we,
Andrew will come and, but she's mentioned she will do that.
To come speak with the board if you'd like.
would the board like that specifically put on the agenda? I mean, I personally would. I'd like to really get a sense of.
Maybe a spreadsheet or some data that we can look at ahead, so if we have any questions on what they do.
Yeah, and I think what would be helpful is, I'd really like to hear from the building administrators, like, this is the result I've seen as a result of their work.
Sure.
Thanks, okay. I
So
had a feeling it was gonna get too deep.
Are you wanting that for the 19th then?
I would, I mean, if it's, I really would. I guess this is something I've been meaning to bring up, and, you know, we get wrapped up in other things, so, thank you. Okay, sorry. Naomi, go ahead.
No, that's fine. So, special education report, home visits, 5, and thank you to Darlene Lemire, who always accompanies me on those visits, so there's 2 of us there. Court involved, you see the numbers there, I'll just go through the numbers for those people that are watching at home. For delinquencies, we have 9 students currently, chins, one form or another, whether it's truancy or something else. 6 students, 1 of whom is just in process and 2 who are voluntary. Abuse, neglect, there are 5 families, that represents 12 children, and then 1 child who is simply court involved due to guardianship. Attendance calls, by me, 10, but I know for a fact that guidance counselors are making a lot of calls home regarding just kind of checking up on students. We've had more progress, although we still have a lot of work to do in getting parents to come in to have meetings when a student gets to a point where we're really concerned about attendance. And we've been working on how to organize that and keep track of our calls and who calls and what's been the result of those calls. Trainings and other events. We're attempting to schedule recertification training, and I apologize, I left out what the training is for crisis prevention intervention. We're required to have staff trained in each building. We're going to attempt to get a good chunk of people recertified in June, and then we'll work on doing the next round in fall. Extended school year, or what we call summer school for special education, is in the planning stages and hopefully about to wrap up this week. DCYF calls, 3 to DCYF. Those are ones conducted by me, but I know other staff members have called, but we usually have a conversation about that. And of those 3 calls, 2 were screened in. Legislation updates. The New Hampshire rules for education of children with disabilities did go into effect, so that all is new as of April. The House did approve Senate Bill 191, which would provide funding for all communities who currently have full-day kindergarten. The bill now moves to the House Finance Committee, so that's kind of a positive move in terms of, you know, helping those districts that have made the choice to do full-day kindergarten. So we'll remain hopeful for that. House Bill 1644, which a lot of people call the dyslexia bill. New Hampshire DOE has contracted with Strong Foundations. The requirement of this bill was to have on staff a reading specialist for the DOE that will help develop the handbook that's going to go along for the protocols and the process. We will be using, obviously, screening tools for kids that come in for kindergarten to make a determination whether or not we have a child that might be have a concern for dyslexia, and that's part of what that bill is all about. To add to that, Senate Bill 193, the Education Savings Account, also sometimes called the voucher bill, there is renewed interest in it from the House, members of the House of Education Committee. And so that is going to be revisited again during the legislative session. So something to keep our eyes on. And then you see the special education numbers there, and then on the back. Mine didn't have a back. I hope everybody else's did. Nope. Oh, there we go. I apologize. If you did not have a back. We have 171 students in district with special education needs. 16 out-of-district students. 1 is between placements, and 3 of those 16 are court-placed. any questions?
When you say in-between placements, that means that a particular placement that one student is in right now isn't meeting his or her needs, and we're looking for something different?
Yeah, we're looking for something different, or the student has decided just really doesn't want to go back to an out-of-district placement right now, so we're managing to make things work by having online tutoring program and doing tutoring to kind of finish up the year. Yep.
What's the breakdown of out-of-district per
For disability.
no, per age group or school level? How many in middle school? Do you know that?
Middle school, 1, 2, 3 off the top of my head. I apologize, my computer
Yeah,
died
that's
just before
okay.
we came in here. And then one, very small number, there's probably one child in the below middle school age, and then the rest would be high school.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dana? Thank you. Okay, subcommittee reports. Anything from Stratford Learning?
I haven't had a meeting.
Okay.
I went to the last board meeting. I've been given the honor of being the, I believe it's assistant treasurer, which I've been assured will be a minimal commitment. We'll see if that proves to be the case.
Oh, so these are meetings separate from what Penny attends on behalf of the board?
This was just
An
the
executive
the
meeting.
executive
Okay.
meeting.
Executive board, yeah.
And they are looking at potentially restructuring the meetings because Penny has been the consistent board member of the decade for them. And board members from most other schools haven't attended. And so they're trying to figure out a structure that works, that allows you to continue being there because they like having you, but also maybe not structure it quite the same way so that the other schools are just not participating. So trying to figure out, so there's some restructuring going on there.
Oh, all right.
And I think partly I earned the position because 2 of the 4 superintendents in attendance are retiring, and so it was tag, you're it. So,
Yeah? Wow, Tam could do a good job.
so, but that's where we are right now.
Okay. Policy committee?
Ooh,
We have
we got a load for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a lot.
7 policies.
Yes. Some of these are second reads.
Yes.
Some of these are brand new. On the second reads, really the difference that you're going to see is there was a little bit of formatting shift that I tried to get them a little bit closer to what they're going to end up looking like, but it wasn't a content shift other than making sure that I had the old policy references or the to-be-named policy references shifted. So, but otherwise, the content remains the same.
Okay, so, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So we're looking to vote again on all these policies tonight?
Well, some of them aren't again. Some of them are new that we haven't seen.
I'm sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
either new or reasons.
The last 3 are new,
Okay,
new-ish. The first 4 are revisits.
all right, so the student tobacco controlled illegal substances policy,
A motion
GICH.
motion to accept as a final read.
I will second that.
At some level in this policy, does this policy at all prevent a student from coming before the board,
No,
if need be?
no.
Does it
not.
require it?
It does not require it, except in an instance where expulsion is recommended. And that is per state board. The RSA says they must come before the board. If there is an expulsion, certainly we can require it in other instances. They would need to come before the board if the suspension exceeds 10 days. Right now, under state policy, while I have the authority to go to 20, they need to see you for it to go to 20.
I don't
The
remember reading
RSA
that.
has changed.
May I ask, under what conditions they would be expelled for either 10 to 20 days? What
They'll
is
be
the-
suspended.
Oh, suspended.
It depends upon the situation. If you have either multiple suspensions that have led up to, if you have a particularly egregious violation that is an assault, a weapons violation, and when I say weapons, obviously if it crosses into prosecutable, it tends to be held differently than if it's a child who brings a knife to school.
I see.
I think this is typically, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch this in the agenda when you sent it to us on Friday. JICI, we've already approved as a final read, the student
You did
weapons.
approve it? Okay.
We did.
Yeah, we
It's
did.
JIA, due process, and JIA-R, due process, that we were supposed to see tonight.
Okay.
I'm so sorry I didn't
That's
catch this
okay.
on Friday.
Right.
So we'll need to get that back
I
in
will
front.
bring
And I
those
think
back in
that's
front.
where the,
And those were two that
when
there
the students were
were,
coming for the board.
there was more that the policy committee was also going to look at for those two.
Oh, okay,
And since we aren't meeting until Friday,
right.
so.
Oh, okay. I
So
had
the
you already.
tobacco policy, we haven't seen yet.
The tobacco policy we saw for a first read.
Okay.
We accepted as first read. We should be looking at now for a second read. Unless someone wants to revisit the weapon policy. We can make a motion to revisit the weapon policy for whatever reason, but we already accepted it for a final read.
What was the vote on that? You know?
Unanimous. Weapons?
Hmm.
Because that
Did
one
that
had a very,
one-
it had a very generic due process component
Yeah.
because that's a no-brainer.
Right. Okay.
But JIA is going to be the one, I think that where we got to hash out when exactly do we want to see students for a student hearing before we let
Okay,
them
so
back in.
that, because that's
That's the
the
one
one,
that details very specifically what is in generalities here.
right, and that's the conversation we had last time, was that we reference it in here.
And actually, JIA is due process, JICK is pupil safety, but that's where it clearly defines the punitive measures. The due process piece is actually fairly short in the state example. It's just, we have a due process that will be followed, and then JICK becomes, and here are the steps that have, so it's a procedural policy, which is kind of an oxymoron because we try to separate them, but this one has to be as policy. JICK goes through and says, here's the definition of suspension, here's the definition of this, and here's the conditions under which those can apply. So, it covers harassment, it covers bullying, but it also outlines some of those other pieces as well as what can and can't happen as far as the, how, and it combines several other policies because things are starting to shift in the landscape of how they're presented. So if you want to see them all together, we certainly can do that. The numbers seem to be getting lengthier. I don't want to just kind of give you, let's look at this all at once. And yet, as I was going through them, so many of them are interconnected and referenced. It became harder to, okay, we're going to do this one without doing this one, without doing that one. So, again, I'm open to how you'd like to see that.
I don't,
Where they are all intermingled, I mean, part of me says if they are all intermingled and they do reference, it would be great to have them all at once, but again, I do see that that would be lengthy and,
is that something that the policy committee could, put them, go together through it, go through them together and then, I mean, we don't have to look at them all at once, but do it over 2 meetings.
I mean, perhaps we have to align on JIA, which is due process, first.
And
And
come
then
back
from
and-
there, in each of the separate policies that bring us to suspensions,
make sure that those are
It all
parallel.
just says JIA. You know, we don't have it outlined.
Well, and JIA is going to be the shorter policy. It's the other pieces that.
Or
because
JIA. Am I thinking of JIA?
JIR is the one that says, and here's all the pieces too. The other
The one that
just says we
tells
have a.
principals and superintendent, here's when you need to have
when you
a
must and
student
here's when you
scheduled for a
can.
hearing.
Yes.
Because they can't return from out-of-school suspension until we do that. If, you know, it seems like the direction we're going to be going in, to keep it the way it is.
And then I guess my other question is, some of these policies, well, this one I would think is
What's this one?
the adoption, well, the one that we have a motion on right now.
JICH.
GIC, thank you.
Needs to go in the handbook.
I was just gonna say, the FHS handbook is up for approval tonight, contingent on these things.
I mean,
Because
certainly.
I'm assuming we have to send it to a printer.
And what goes into the handbook is an abbreviated excerpt that then points back to. Because the entire policy is not typically quoted verbatim in the handbook. The handbook would be a tome.
Okay.
So,
So who seconded that, Kelly? We had a motion from Penny. Linda, okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this policy?
And it's a second read was the motion?
The final read.
A final read.
did you want to amend to second read and then go back to?
Do we want to just table the policies that, any of the policies that have JIA, you know?
I think so.
Okay.
All right, then I'll,
So which one's that?
Actually, it will be everything but, number
EB
3,
and-
BDG, BEDG, and
7.
7, EB.
Okay, motion,
So-
so you've withdrawn your other motion.
I'll withdraw.
Second. And Mrs. Moran has made a new motion to table policies that are listed on the agenda in
J.
1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, which all reference JIA.
In some regard.
That makes sense, Kelly?
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cardinal. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. So let's jump down to BEDG and BEDG/R, School Board Digital Documents Policy.
So that we
This is
accepted
a-
for a first read at the last meeting.
Right, we already approved this, or as a first read.
As a first
Yeah.
read.
I move to accept as a final read.
Moved by Mrs. Cardinal, accept as a final read. Second by Ms. McLaney, sorry. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. And policy EB, Joint Loss Management/Safety
And
Committee.
Does
this combines two or three other policies that were kind of floating out there, and gives a little bit more clarity to the Joint Loss Management Committee, Safety Committee, and all of the pieces that need to be included in that without referencing and skipping our way through the policy manual and the alphabet soup to get to them.
Motion to accept as the final read.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Moran, second by Mrs. Cardinal to accept as a final read. Any discussion on this? All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
I do have one question. Why does it have JLI afterwards?
Because it is referenced as both EB and JLI because it's under facilities and management, and it's also under student because it
So it's gonna be in both places?
So it'll be in both
Okay.
places. Yep.
Buildings and Grounds Committee, which, thank you, Linda, for stepping in for me that evening. Anything in particular?
I'll let Rick
Oh,
Allen.
okay.
Oh, okay. We looked at our procedure for facilities use and how that does work and how it doesn't always work as well as we'd like it to. We talked about some things that need to be streamlined, looked at instituting a fee structure for use so that different groups as they're coming in, if we have custodians that need to cover, if we have setup breakdown that's needed, that doesn't become incumbent on just staff to just do and for the district to absorb. We did look at a tiered fee structure as well, so that there's district level, town level, nonprofit, and then residents, for-profit, and then non-residents. So you've got several tiers of what could happen there. We also talked about a management system that would allow us to get the approval process streamlined a bit rather than chasing antiquated pieces of paper. So.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Budget Committee.
Sorry, one question about the buildings and
Sure.
grounds. So will that policy that we currently have, does that need to come in front of the policy committee once that's those details are hashed out? Or is that something that's going to be?
It's more procedural than policy that we were looking at, but once we get into the fee structure, that part will need to be approved by the board.
Okay, and then we can update the current policy that we have on the use of our facilities to just reference
Yes.
those documents. Okay.
It could become the R to that policy.
Right, because I think it's still under the old number system as well.
Oh, it's under the old number system, and I think a lot of the forms still reference debt breaks. So it's time to update some things.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Budget Committee.
okay, so last budget committee meeting, regular budget committee meeting for May, we have a request to our school board for some data. It's a bit of a data analysis, simply because some of the data that was requested is available through the New Hampshire Department of Education website. But the request that we have in front of us is for 10-year history and a trend of 10-year history on some of our spending. So specifically, school budget increases and decreases, special education costs in Farmington, and then not strictly financial, but somewhat related, is enrollment in Farmington, all for the same 10-year period, is the request that came through. Additionally, the Budget Committee voted 7-2 in favor of asking the board to sanction the SAU office to go out and get 3 estimates of costs from 3 neighboring school districts to determine how much tuition costs those 3 districts would charge Farmington for either a scenario of 7th through 12th grade, or, let me see the minutes from the meeting, hold on, or 9th through 12th grade, if Farmington wanted to enter an area agreement with a neighboring district to tuition our students there. That's what the final motion that got approved was for. Initially, the request was for a feasibility study and, a really big analysis to be done. And the rest of the Budget Committee wasn't going to support that, so the motion got amended twice, and that's what we ended up with for a request. I promised that as the representative to the Budget Committee, on behalf of the school board, I would come back to you folks and let you know that this request was discussed. I promised them I would bring it up this meeting. I did research on, because a lot of the discussion was what's out of scope as far as what a budget committee can request of a school district in terms of analyses, and again, that feasibility study was brought up. And I took a look at the guide that the DRA puts out for village districts and school districts on, the purpose of a budget committee, the role of the budget committee. It definitely recognizes that the school board, in the work that's done to prepare for a proposed new school year budget, and the work that's done when it comes to making sure that all expenditures and revenues that come in are happening as they're supposed to, has a lot more information than your budget committee member would. However, it says that a budget committee becomes an arbiter, given power by the legislature to reconcile appropriation requests to maintain the tax load within manageable proportions. That's what's cited from a 1970 ruling in a court situation where the boundaries of a budget committee were questioned at that time.
Can you read that again?
Well, I'll read this clause. This is a good clause. It says, since all departments naturally tend to want more money in order to better perform the functions they are charged with, the budget committee becomes an arbiter, given power by the legislature to reconcile these appropriation requests to maintain the tax load within manageable proportions. So that's just, an explanation of what the role of the budget committee is in the sense of asking for information and then information required in order to perform the role. So what I would recommend is we can go ahead and give that 10-year trend of the data that's already reported to the New Hampshire Department of Education by our team. I don't think that this request should put any undue workload on our current school district employees. Even though, the request was to have it for September. It's plenty of time to get that information. But the additional request for 3 estimates of costs from 3 neighboring school districts, that requires negotiation. Even if, I pulled up who has area agreements with whom already in this state, and there are 2 school districts that are somewhat close to us in proximity, right? Rochester and Somersworth, and who they currently have an area agreement with, but that's a negotiated agreement. You can't take their basic tuition number that they charge each other and then say, oh, that's what would be charged at Farmington. We're not going to go and call them up and ask them, what would you charge Farmington? It requires negotiation. So I don't think, as far as, the law that was cited where the school district is required to give information to the budget committee, let me figure out which law that was. Information that's already captured and reported, absolutely. That is something that our school district should be required to give to our budget committee, in my opinion. But information that requires analysis and negotiation with other parties is not something that we can do every single time it's requested.
Well, in addition to that, the governing body, the school board, isn't looking to move in any of those directions.
Right.
At least I don't think we are. There's been no discussion that we're going to.
Correct.
You were a lot more tactful than I'm probably going to be in the next 5 minutes, but I watched the budget committee meeting, and in my opinion, I don't know when this happened, but in my opinion, I think these meetings have morphed into something they shouldn't be. When we start questioning surveys and questions on surveys, as you were getting these questions thrown at you, in fact, one budget committee member said, I'm going to ask you questions outside of the realm of budget. I think we're morphing into a entity that is not what it's intended to be. And we will decide at this level what we're going to spend lots of time on, and feasibility studies, and I understand the motion changed because they didn't think they had the support, and things like that are things that we will decide if we're going to move in that direction. This is just me speaking as the chairman of the board, not for the whole board. If the rest of the board feels otherwise, feel free to say something. But I watched the meeting and was puzzled because I don't ever remember, and it must have happened in the previous superintendent's tenure, where we were reporting every month, usually after, you figure our budget cycle starts in September, we start preparing budgets here, and it gets presented to us through like October and November, and then to the budget committee. And then they have their hearings, and then it goes to deliberative session, and then it goes to the voters. That's about a 7-month process, 6 to 7 month process. Once it's adopted by the voters, we need to then finish up a school year, close out a school year, prepare for the next school year during summer session, and then worry about opening school. We're not gonna, I will fight not to entertain those types of things for our staff to have to worry about when we're trying to close school, prepare for school, and open school. It's a little concerning to me that it's morphed into that environment. I don't know when it happened or where or why. It does not have my support.
I have to agree. Actually, it's become more of a micromanagement, and I was actually going to ask the same thing as to why they wanted the 3 surrounding districts information, because that wasn't anything that we were looking into.
Correct.
So that was confounding. But yeah, I have to agree. There's just a line that needs to be drawn, I think.
I was a little concerned with all the what-ifs, because I don't think we should be chasing these little rabbits if it's not a direction that we need to go in. I think we need to stay focused, and I think giving them the data is fine, but I think that the data is there. If it's really what they want to see, the data is there. I don't mind providing it. I'm sure that it's probably easy for us to spit it out and send it to them, or send them a link. But to look at area schools, and I know when we were going through the Middleton withdrawal, we looked at area schools and the rooms and the space that they had, and there wasn't any. So, to go looking for something that's not possible is just futile.
And I think, too, there is a mistaken belief through the communities that with Middleton's withdrawal, suddenly we are wallowing in lots of space that's unused. And we lost, I believe it was 127 students. We still have over 900 students here. It's not like half of the student body left and we're languishing in empty classrooms. If you have a class of 20 students and 5 leave, and that's a much higher percentage than we had exit the district, you still need a classroom and a teacher for the remaining 15 students. And that's not something that you can continue to stack students like cordwood. Program requires space, and to do it well, particularly with a changing demographic of students who need things done differently, you can't keep adding more desks and more bodies and expecting it to be an improvement. It's not how it works.
Yeah, I think that was the other thing, is that they wanted to consolidate K through 8 in the Henry Wilson building. Did I hear that, or no?
There was one question, why don't you? And it was answered quickly. There isn't enough space to do that.
Okay.
Yep. So to answer your question, Mr. Chagnon, RSA 32:22 is where a town that has a budget committee is responsible for review of expenditures. Upon request by the budget committee, the governing body of the town or district, or the town manager or other administrative official shall forthwith submit to the budget committee a comparative statement of all appropriations and all expenditures by them made in such detail as the budget committee may require. It's loose language. Budget committee shall meet periodically to review such statements. So in Farmington, we do that once a month. And that's why Lori prepares and provides the statements ahead of time to be included in the packet for the budget committee.
But my point is, we never used to, and I don't see the need for it, because I watched when the report was submitted, the chair asked if there were any questions.
Right.
There
There were
wasn't
none about
one
that
question.
report.
Then the chair responded, "That's typical for this time of year."
She did.
Yeah, it is typical, because we've completed our budget cycle and we're closing school, and that's,
Right.
so I just think there could be some time better, well spent, and, I would entertain this a little stronger if we had a different vote in March, but we had voters come out and support the budget, and support the contracts, and support the warrant articles. Everything passed. People are saying, move forward. People are approving what we want to do. They're not saying cut back and close a building and do this and that. That's not what the vote says. So we're not going to spend time on it, in my opinion. I won't support spending any time on that right now.
No.
There could be a point where we get to a point with population trends where we have to have that discussion someday. You never know. I don't think it's right now. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I guess where, you said you're more diplomatic about this request than I am. I would encourage.
No, I said I was going to be less tactful.
Tactful, sorry, not diplomatic,
Yeah,
tactful.
because I'm going to end with this statement. If you want more control over the operation of the schools, run for school board. I'll say it out there. Run for school board, folks. I want a certain amount of say about the operation of the schools, and that's why I put my name on the ballot the last couple rounds. If you want more say, you can run for school board. You don't have to stay on the budget committee. Put your name on a ballot. Sorry.
I would just encourage, the folks that have these ideas of where to save money, they're kind of fishing around for ways that they perceive is a way to save money. I don't think that this one is the right one, but we have the Strategic Innovations Planning Committee that is going to look at 10 years out, that has started now, and everyone is welcome to come, provide input, provide ideas, help us go down the paths that will do things like save us on a continuous basis, save us money that way. Not enter, even if we entered into an initial agreement, that doesn't guarantee you will save money. Do you know what I mean? So it seems like we're just being very impatient. I'm saying we collectively. Individuals who are supporting this idea by saying, yep, we want the school district to go off and look at the numbers, are jumping the gun. Let's work it through the strategic planning process that's already started. Let's spend the summer working on that. And if naturally we say, you know what, maintaining 3 buildings, the operational cost, the cost to improve Henry Wilson School over the next 10 years, it's not smart, then that's naturally where the strategic plan will go. That, if you watch back the video, you see that's what my commentary was during discussion on that, and why I voted no was that wasn't the proper place, location, venue, timing to go after that idea. Otherwise, the sky's the limit on ideas we'll just throw out there, and then we'll all spin our wheels at going after information to prove or disprove the idea, instead of letting the strategic planning, setting goals and going after them.
There's a tremendous amount of work involved in closing out a school year, and in the same time preparing for, but with budgets that have been passed and warrant articles that have been passed, preparing for work to be done and things to be done for the next school year. You spend summer session, they're moving an SAU.
Yep.
Spend summer session trying to get the most highly qualified staff and the best staff that we can find, and then opening a school year. That's extremely busy. I always argued that we started the budget process too soon, but you have to, because it ends up becoming a 6-month process. Anyway.
Partly due to the fact that we have a budget committee.
Right. Okay, thank you.
That was my report
Thank you.
out, so I'm not hearing a motion to go ahead with supporting this request.
No,
Thank you.
thank you. Job description revisions, paraprofessional.
Okay, there are 2.
She can stand up to you.
The revision that is in your packet is primarily to make sure that there are 2 pieces in there. One, that the physical requirements, the physical demands per RSA are included, which are not currently in our job description. That we've had some qualifications that have been somewhat contradictory. You have to have an associate's degree, you can do this, you could do that instead, and it doesn't read consistently in different sections. And making sure that we have something that, as we go into bargaining, as we look at the evaluation system for the paras over the summer, that it's something that we can build from that makes sense. And so I did send this to Debbie Pate, who I don't know how much this was shared through with other paras, sorry. But she did kind of look at this, and she had a couple of suggestions we might want to look at. This is still not quite parallel. I went back and made sure that things lined up. But that's primarily the changes here. It's not that we're now saying paraprofessionals are going to do these 9 other duties that we're trying to sneak in under the radar. That's not the case. It's making sure that the fact that they are not responsible for supervision is clearly delineated, and what the expectation is as far as physical demands and technological skills, that's clear. So that's why, because. Great.
A motion to accept?
Motion to-
You want it as a first read? Does this need to be approved through the paraprofessionals? The changes?
It certainly could be. I mean, it's because it's not adding to their responsibilities, it's really more clarifying what needs to happen with new hires. But certainly I'm not opposed to it going back to
I'll do it as a first
the
read then,
union
and then you can
to
bring
make
it
sure
back.
everybody's seen it.
Second.
Okay.
No, motion is a first read, second by Mrs. Cardinal as a first read. Qualifications on the reverse side is misspelled.
I was just gonna
Oh,
say that,
thank
too.
you. Oh,
There's
yes.
a little typo there.
Yeah, there's kind of a Trumpism there. I'll
And
fix
no
that.
child left behind, too.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, any other,
Well, that's crossed out, so.
Yeah.
That's because it was a PDF that was put back into a Word document that got very strange, so.
something that just jumped out at me, it's other tasks as assigned by special ed case manager or building principal. You might want to say building administrator. I mean, just because you might have an assistant principal doing a duty schedule or something of that nature. I mean,
Right.
it's very technical, but you just.
Nope, I appreciate
Yeah.
it, thank you.
Okay, so, all those in favor of first read? Aye.
Okay, thank you.
High-set ELO coordinator.
Earlier this year, you approved a job description for an ELO credit acquisition coordinator. And we were not able to staff that. Looking as we move forward to be able to leverage both the high-step program that we have and expand on that. We have had fewer students accessing it. It's still an important program to keep. But if we could combine the two so that this person is also looking at the ELO internships piece so that we can expand opportunities for students who need an alternative, whether it's through HiSET, through expanded outside learning, make some of those connections into the community and really kind of do a win-win so that we get to have our cake and eat it too a little bit. So really what this does is it takes what you've already approved and it morphs it with what we already have existing in the HiSET coordinator so that we could make that one position as opposed to two separate, smaller pieces.
A motion to accept as a final read.
I will second that.
Motion by Mrs. Moore and second by Ms. McElhenney for a final read. Why no teaching certificate?
I think that was probably that was specifically from the ELO credit acquisition piece. And I would say that HiSET does require, so I would take that out. Thank you.
I mean, we ask for a BA or a BS, but we don't
Right.
say what it needs to be in.
Yeah, and I would.
If that person's doing any teaching, please, let's get a teacher.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Yep,
You know.
no, that was from the ELO piece, and so,
Okay.
yes, I would,
I said requires
yes.
that the person be certified in a core academic area or special ed events.
And possess a license?
Yes.
Yes,
Yep.
so I will take out the not and take out the but is preferred.
Okay. Anything else, folks?
Thank you.
But the nature of the title being coordinator, would this person be considered administration?
No.
So it'd fall almost under a guidance counselor sort of category of the FTA,
It would be under a teacher's certificate.
the CBA, I mean.
Do you want this as a first read to see those changes, or? Okay.
Put 'em in.
Okay.
Anything else? All those in favor as amended? Aye.
Thank you.
The mural, I'm excited. I went running in there thinking it was already done.
No.
No.
Thumbs up.
I did, I was out there looking, I'm like,
So what you have is a photoshopped version
yeah,
to show you what we would like to add to the mural.
yeah.
And it's one of those gray areas of, we'd like to tell you that this is what we're going to do, but also acknowledging that if there are any grave concerns or hesitations to the addition, speak now. So,
And for those of you watching at home that can't necessarily see this, the proposal is to put on the mural that already exists on the high school, on one of the high school gymnasium walls, once a tiger, always a tiger, in a nice script type print. It's a phrase that has been used quite often. I'm going to give Mrs. Tatro credit for coining that phrase. I think she really did. Or at least she got it popular. Someone may have said it before, but
We're not
she...
going to put it in quotes for it, though.
Oh, we're not going to put her name on it? Oh, okay, well, we'll give her credit tonight. How's
Put
that?
unknown.
I
I
think
believe it is, I believe she sort of
Yeah,
took it or coined it.
yeah. I mean, first of all, it's a beautiful mural. Teams that visit us are always like in awe of its size. It's probably one of the biggest murals in a high school gymnasium. I always thought that there was a little blankness there, so that's perfect to me.
Yeah, I love it.
I did. I went running in tonight thinking you'd already done it. I think it's
I
great.
think it's out.
Do I have a motion
Yeah.
to accept?
Yes.
By Penny, second by Linda. All those in favor? Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Who's going to do it, actually?
We're working through that right now.
Oh.
Possibly Allison Lowe,
Okay, the answer was Allison Lowe, who's a staff member. Yeah, thank you.
if she
Right.
feels comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
She'd be fantastic.
Where are we at here? Approval of FHS handbook.
so the handbook was included in your packet as a scanned copy, and I'm not really sure why you got all the comment section on the side without the comments, except there's probably
I
one
got the
at
same
the end.
thing. I don't know-
Yeah,
I don't know why that was.
some of the minutes also came through the same way.
Yeah.
I didn't get it on
I
my...
was having a bad day, I guess, so.
The electronic version is clear.
It's fine?
Is it clear?
Okay,
Okay.
so it's just the print version.
Do you have any particular highlights, changes, Mr. Jazokis?
There really isn't many highlights. I mean, I think the bigger changes would be based off of the bell schedule, with us moving from a 7-period per day to a 6-period per day, increasing that period of time. That is really the biggest pieces of it. We did put in the graduation piece as approved a couple board meetings ago, so that kind of spells it out as well. The 3 different types of diplomas for kids to see there, but everything else is pretty much the same. You will notice in there that there are some of the references to the letters versus the numbers, so that in the future, if it does go through, at least we can have both the number and the letters referenced in that piece of it, like the weapons and things like that, so. But other than that, everything's pretty much straight.
And it would be great if this could be a final read, because
Yes.
it needs to go to the printer ever so soon.
Any
Okay.
questions?
Well, there's a few things that are,
We put I'll motion for a final read.
oh, yeah, second.
Motion and a second.
For discussion.
Mrs. Cardinal, for discussion for a final read.
On pages 3 and 18, it references where policies are available for the public to view. and it says FHS library, but then on page 31, it says contact the superintendent for the policies. Do we want to just
They're all
go
those pieces. You
consistent?
can get a copy here, you can get, I have a book, and obviously at the SAU.
So maybe list them all
There's
together.
just
So in
some
each place,
conflicting.
yeah.
Page 31 says something very different from pages 3 and 18.
So did you say 3, what pages again?
3, 18, and 31.
All right.
And actually, they're in process of being published on the web too. So that would be another location that's it.
Right. Yeah, I think page 31 says that.
Okay.
Thank you. On page 18, there's a reference to study hall.
Yeah.
Is that
Oh.
something that should be
Yeah, that has
reworded
to come
now,
out.
or are we still going to keep that
No.
terminology?
Well, it's more of the RTI block.
Yeah.
So,
And it doesn't mean that there will never be a study hall.
Okay.
What the change was that no longer in the teacher's contract does it say that every teacher is guaranteed and afforded a study hall as part of teaching assignment.
Okay, so then I guess that would be fine to just keep that way in page 18.
I just had one question. You still going?
Go ahead.
18-year-old students need a note from their parent to write a note. Can we do that?
well, we usually require that just so that we have documentation, because we've been in that process where mom and dad have no idea that their son or daughter has taken away all of their educational rights. So we usually like to get that in writing.
Right, I know, but can
It's a
we?
one-time authorization.
Well, just, not even just the fact that are in that piece. We also call just to
Yeah.
verify that they're,
Aware.
so that when they call and say, can I speak with you about Rachel? And I say, I'm sorry, but Rachel has taken away all of your rights as a parent to,
Right.
there's not that initial shock. So,
Certainly, there's the communication piece that is the school's prerogative as far as requiring the note. I think if we had pushback there, then it would become, communication.
Requesting?
Otherwise, yeah.
Okay, that was something that kind of just struck me.
I mean, there are some times where we have kids who no longer live with their parents, and to get that piece of it, but we verified that they're no longer living at home, and
Yeah.
in which case, we would use our discretion and say, we understand where you're at, or a
Okay.
homeless situation, things like that, of that nature.
Any other questions?
Yes, page 22 says that video surveillance is on the buses rotating. That's not, it's video surveillance on all the buses now, right?
All of the buses have cameras. They are not necessarily in use at all times on all buses.
Okay,
Looking to change that.
okay. I thought we already did. That's good to know. Page 26 references a JPPO.
That's the
Juvenile
juvenile probation
probation
officer.
officer.
Different from the SRO.
Correct,
Yes.
yes, yep.
And then page 27, for where we currently send our students, Lakes Region Technical Center.
Yep.
It's called CTE, it's called Region 9.
Region 9 is their region,
Yeah,
and so we refer to it as that, because it was originally Region 9, then they changed to LRTC,
Yeah.
and so we left it just as Region 9 to
Left
stay
as Region
consistent
9.
there.
is it okay if we do a find and replace?
If you'd like to do
Second
that, I can put
replace
the Lakes
to-
region in there.
Even LRTC, the acronym is fine
Yep.
too, just for consistency. I'm thinking of parents of freshmen coming in.
Yep, we can
When
certainly
I'm
do that.
reading this. On page 28, since you have the bell schedule on there, I know period 1 goes into the break, but should period 1 end at 8:47 to allow the 3 minutes between every other period, or since it's going into a break, we don't allow the 3 minutes?
We don't, because it's going into a break,
Okay.
so.
And then page 34, IEP, it says it stands for Individualized Educational Program. I thought the P stood for plan.
I'm sorry, what page?
34.
The P is plan.
How did that improve? Sorry.
Thank you.
And then I have a list of all the policies that are called out by number, so that maybe over the next year, before the next iteration, we can have it all by letter. Good goal.
Great goal.
Good to have goals.
Anything else?
I think I gave you
All
guys
those in
enough,
favor of a
sorry.
final read as amended? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is, I'm gonna call this new business. I want to bring something up, actually. I don't know, it's kind of new business. Recently, had the opportunity to go to a meeting, sort of a training, at the NHIA with Mrs. Peabody, Mrs. Jazokis, and some of our coaches about restorative, give me the actual.
Restorative justice.
Justice. Who said justice?
I did.
Oh, thank you. Came from over there, I was all impressed, I thought it was Kelly. Restorative
I'm not
justice,
impressed.
which is really a sort of philosophical approach to the discipline and teaching of a student athlete. Earlier in the year, I asked if we could at some point talk about what each school does philosophically and what they do procedurally in their buildings with their approach to discipline. I really, really want to have a conversation about that soon. I know that we're closing up the school year, but I would like each principal to be here so that we can hear, this is what discipline looks like in our building. And I know it's going to be very different, because we've had a lot of different turnover with different staff and things. I think it's going to be a little different. But I want to hear what the philosophical approach is to discipline and what teaching pieces we have in place so that it's not just, okay, you're punished and we'll see you when you get back, and hope that the problem just disappears. Because what we've learned over the years is that just punishing doesn't make the problem disappear. It doesn't teach. We all know that if we've gotten a speeding ticket, because I guarantee we still speed, we're just a little more crafty about it. So I really want to hear where we're at each building. I'm sorry, does the rest of the board feel that way? We deal with a lot of student issues and student discipline issues, and I can see during those hearings, you can sort of hear sort of a little bit of a different philosophical outlook in how do we get everybody on the same page. And there's a lot of people to get on the same page. So I'd really, at some point soon, like to hear about that.
Is that the 19th or the first one in July?
I was gonna say 19. They're not,
We could do a
well,
policy
why don't we
on
do it on
19.
a night when they're gonna be here anyway, and they're gonna give their, what date is it in July?
I didn't say.
Oh,
We got to talk about that.
Yeah, July 3rd is the Monday.
no.
Okay.
Let's do it in July.
Okay.
Let's do it in July. People will be able to close out school, I don't think you folks are scheduled to be here at the next meeting anyway, so I don't want to,
You just scheduled us for the consultant.
oh, yeah, we did.
I did.
But please don't. You see my snorkel? It's like.
It doesn't have to be you. The building principal can delegate this report out to someone who is equally as knowledgeable about, because this would cover behavior programs that are currently in place, right?
So
I mean, that's my opinion, it's up to you.
that might be something,
I just think it plays a big role in the climate and culture of your district, of each building. And, I've always been a proponent that you can have all these lovely initiatives and want to do all these great things, and if the climate isn't where we want it, you are wasting time. You gotta really work on climate first. In my opinion, you gotta work on improving climate and culture first before you can move forward with lots of other things. This is my opinion. If you think it can fit on the next agenda while they're here, great. If you're hearing from them, it's just a little too much with the closing of school, then let's push it off.
And actually, I guess what I would like to clarify is the piece on the consultants. Are you looking for them to present it, or can I bring the consolidated information for the 3 schools with their report on what they're seeing from each consultant, rather than having them physically here?
No, why don't we just do it at the July meeting? We'll do their reports, they can tell us how school closed, we can talk about consultants, we can talk about school school discipline program. I'd like them here because
Yeah.
I
That way you
think
can ask
that
questions.
yeah, I'd like to hear, gee, this is how I've seen this help in my building. I mean, you can report that, but I like to hear it directly from them,
I
so.
don't have a problem with that.
All right, thank you.
I was just trying to
Yeah.
acknowledge the snorkels.
Have a great-
So,
Don't go on vacation in July until you find out when. Just kidding.
I think that's next on the agenda anyway,
Oh,
so
it
the
is?
calendar.
Okay. Old business, calendar and June 23rd.
I would like to formally request that as I throw my pen about, that June 23rd be a half-day for students. It would be a full day for staff, but a half-day for students. Right now, it is not listed as such on the calendar, and I would like to be able to clarify that for parents, as I've had myriad requests. So.
I move to accept that recommendation, early release on June 23rd.
Okay, there's a motion by Mrs. Cardinal. Is there a second?
I'll second that
A second by Ms. McElhenney? Why?
Why? For a number of reasons. I think that day typically, while instructionally speaking, it tends to be more of a wrap-up. I think the wrap-up, what I don't want it to do is to be a dragging on of closing activities. They tend to expand to the space that they have to fill, and I would like to keep it as succinct as possible, and with the expectation that teaching is going on right up to the end of that day before, without it being, let's continue and prolong.
I just think I'm thinking we've forgiven so many days for snow.
We've forgiven 3 student days. We're still okay on hours.
Right.
Any other comments, questions?
I'm in support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No? Well, we have the calendar. Do we want to talk about July's meeting? You want to do the 10th and the 24th?
Oh,
Yeah, 10 and 24.
Do you want 2 meetings in July?
No. Do I want?
Well, I'm
Do we need 'em?
Just asking. I mean, at this point, I don't know. It's going to depend upon how many nominations I have.
I think we should plan on.
We could schedule 2, and if we end up not needing the second, we can
Yeah.
always say, you're off.
I like that plan.
we'll have a better idea on the 10th, probably at that point, maybe.
I'm
I don't
hoping to have
know.
a better idea in the next week or so,
Yeah.
but,
Well, let's schedule the July one for, not the next one, but the first July meeting for July 10th.
10th.
10.
And then if we wanted to skip a week, there are 5 Mondays.
Right. Okay.
I have one administrator who won't be able to make that meeting.
The
It's the 10th.
July 10th?
And that's already been approved, so,
Okay.
sorry.
Do you want to do July
Yeah.
17 and 24?
There's
Back-to-back
another one who can't do
Mondays?
17.
Later in the month? No.
So, let me work it out with them,
Yeah.
and we'll draw straws, and the short one will be here anyway.
Yeah, I don't want to push off the conversation about
No.
consultants or school management too long, considering the school management one was brought up way earlier in the school year, and again, I haven't re-brought it up, but I think it's time to have that conversation.
Okay. Well,
The consultants can probably wait, but the school, I mean, a little bit. We can talk at some point during the summer about
Right.
that, and even talk about it at different nights with different administrators, but,
Right.
school management.
okay. Okay, consultants could happen in June?
Yeah.
Is that still? Okay,
All right,
so, and then we'll get.
work it out.
All right.
All right. Food service recommendations. We had asked for some, put out to bid, and we'd asked for also what it would look like to do a potential in-house program again, like we've had in the past.
I have extras here, too.
Okay. Does anyone need to see it in a format that's perhaps not very small and?
Yes, please.
very scrunched?
'Cause mine keeps shifting on me and my tablet here.
So those are in sections.
Okay.
So the white one on the top. And then the two
My
green
eyeballs
ones.
just don't.
Okay,
like
so you
screen
want to take a white and 2 greens. So currently, we have bids from 3 groups for food service, and we've also given you a budget and projected revenue sheet for an in-house version of the food service program. When Farmington ceased having its own food service program and went out to bid, a number of the, I think the primary reason at that point was financial, because there was a number of fairly large shortfalls that were needing to be covered, and the hope was that a contracted service might be a little bit less, or a little bit more manageable and a little bit less surprise. We've had contracted services now since 2013, I believe.
Started with the 2014.
14 school year. And with 2 different groups, our current food service contract ends the 23rd or 30th of June. And so now we're looking at either going with another contracted service or, again, resuming an in-house operation. Our initial look at what we were presented, the 3 bids are very different. They're not necessarily apples to apples. And looking at the projected revenues, some of those we find really difficult to reconcile with what we know of our own trends over the past several years. Hence, the option that we've put in for self-opt is a lot more conservative, particularly in the revenue section, looking at not wanting to say, oh yes, we can guarantee that we're going to come up with, $35,000 worth of revenue from faculty purchasing a la carte menu. We really don't know that. And I'm not really willing to climb out on that branch and saw it off after myself. So, looking at what we've run into as some issues and what we see as some positives, our initial recommendation would be to look at housing our own again, primarily for some of the control over the quality, the staffing, and having a better line of communication, because there are employees as opposed to, third and fourth party conversations. But this goes to the board, so.
We spoke briefly about this in non-public tonight because there were some contractual things that we needed to discuss, which falls under obviously non-public status. And at that time, I asked Ms. Burwile, do you have the last year that we did house our own program? How much in the red were we?
Okay, so at year
And do you have
end-
previous years too, or just that year?
I do, I have
Okay.
2012 back to 2009.
Okay.
So, school year ending 2012 was $69,555. 2011 and it was in the red, $25,786. 2010, $13,228. And then 2009 shows $38,000 even.
All in the red.
Yeah, all in the red. So,
I don't even remember a number that was so much higher than 69. Like, I'm thinking it was between 89 and 95,000 that we had to subsidize one year. Maybe it was a year before 9.
I think that was before '09. I think it might have been while I was here previously.
Yeah.
which I don't have on the
Right.
computer, it's in the legacy.
And if I'm reading these green copies correctly, the total estimated expenses for Farmington self-opt would be $354,000, and the total estimated revenues would be $343,000. Is that correct? So we're already anticipating that we'd be in the red 11,000? Is that how this is read?
That is correct. That is, simply for some areas of having to put a placeholder number for cafeteria supplies and paper goods, that drives it. The staffing, and actually the staffing is a bit leaner, but they're a bit more competitive. They're pretty competitive wages. So it would be 3 staff at each of the 3 kitchens, ranging anywhere between $11.50 to $13.50 an hour, depending on their responsibilities. But the program director is also going to be a hands-on working manager doing reporting, reporting to the SAU, reporting to the Bureau of Nutrition. The advantage is that that person is not spending that additional time reporting to a higher corporate level. And so that's where we're seeing that time can be devoted into some program development, after-school meals, expanding the breakfast more so throughout the district, summer meal programming, just overall quality.
And would there be 9 employees plus the director, or is the director one of the 9?
The
Plus.
9 employees plus the director.
Okay.
I see that in your, I'm sorry, can I ask a question next? I see on that revenue comparison, in your projections for the reimbursements for state and federal breakfast, the counts are much lower than what the best bid, I should say, that we have from an outside company is. Why would those numbers be so different?
You're, tell me, you're looking at...
The free breakfast federal, reimbursed breakfast state.
Yeah, that's what I brought up in non-public
Like, I thought
as well.
when we put out the request for bid, we give the projections of numbers, the counts, don't we?
It's what they feel that they can do for us. We give them the history, about a year and a half's history of what the trend is. It's what they feel that they can increase their sales.
So is the projection for the self-operate,
It's kind of
internal?
conservative in that when you start building it based upon a revenue budget, conservative counts of numbers, so I've not really included any kind of a percentage for growth in here.
Okay.
So.
It could look better than this.
Yes, it could
Right.
look better
So
than
then
that.
It's a,
So then what you
is
would
adding
do
up
is-
to an automatic $10,000 deficit. It's because you've been conservative on both ends, right? You're not projecting higher sales.
That is
And you're
correct.
also not projecting lower costs, where you aren't confident there'll be lower costs.
Yeah.
For example, no administrative fee, no management fee. if we do an in-house.
And I've also not taken into consideration the concept, I've talked to the director of the buying group. There is a buyinggroup.org that is specifically for New Hampshire school districts, 55 school districts. They actually going to look to branch out a bit into Maine. And it's a school district bidding group, so that I've not taken into consideration on the expenses what kind of additional savings that we could see. I've used a multiplier based on pretty much what the other bidders have used, is that for every lunch that you sell, it costs $1.30 to prepare it and produce it. Now, that $1.30 may be less as we go into the buying group. I've looked at their spreadsheets, and have looked at some of the items that they're purchasing by case, and it certainly is, for 55 districts, they're definitely seeing some savings.
And this year, the current price for student meals?
$2.75.
Oh, so it's staying the same in this analysis, okay. Good.
We've put it at the same price. There is a mechanism that I'll have to run it through, and it's a paid lunch equity tool. Basically, it's a safeguard to run through the costs through this paid lunch equity tool. Is the state's tool, so that you're not increasing lunches so much that parents cannot afford it. Are you entitled to an increase? Do you have to reduce the price? So what we've seen in the past couple of years is that we have been allowed to go up a nickel. And that can add up to families if they have several children and over the course of the weeks in the school year.
All the questions I had.
Okay, any other questions? Student has a bad experience with a lunch server and the parent calls. Who deals with it now? Principal? Principal doesn't, how does that work now, folks?
It's the director.
But, because they're not your employee.
Comes to me first, usually.
Yeah, and then you do,
Then I would go to
yeah,
Andy, have a conversation with her.
Yeah.
And then one of us would get back to the parent, depending on what the situation was.
and do you currently chase down kids for debt? You still do that, even though we have our own thing? Well, you do, I guess you'd kind of have to, because who would? Yeah. Okay,
Because it becomes our deficit.
right, yeah.
Lori, what were some of the downfalls besides revenue that we had when we were having our own program? What was some of the, I guess, and what are some of the downfalls of having, can you give us some pros and cons of both? What do you think some of the pros are for doing it ourselves, other than the money side?
Well, I think having it, I think the investment, community investment, that I know that there are some employees who still, they live locally, they live in town. And I think there's an opportunity for bringing back some of that pride. I also think that the communication can be better. I also think that having it in-house, I think you'd have a better team and team climate. Working with principals, working with the health and wellness committee, PE teachers, counselors, and nurses, so that students do have that, I guess I would call it maybe a wraparound, that if, students do need some help, recognizing those things.
What are some of the pros to having the outside source?
Well, I have to say that there is a misconception that you bring in an outside company and they run everything for you. But there still is a lot of things that the district and the SAU office is still required to do, and looking and obviously chasing paperwork. Probably
I mean, theoretically, it should be that it's less work for us and that it's hands-off and they take care of it all. And that's what the proposals in those lovely binders suggest. It's not been our experience.
No,
And the principals are saying.
so I'm trying to come up with some of the
Is there a
benefits.
difference in accounts payable, accounts receivable space, paying bills? Less paperwork
It's
on
more
that
work
end through
for-
our
Maybe,
SAU?
yes,
Yes.
I would say probably on that, but,
It's like every food delivery now with an outside vendor, they're handling
they
payments for
handle
that.
it. But the same will happen, that will still remain the same. It would still be the director and the employee checking things in and inventory.
But then it's
So I
going
guess
to
I'm
kick
kinda-
up to you for
To cut-
payables.
As far as cutting checks, yes. it
Right,
would-
so
it would come to
that's
us.
going to be an added to your workload. So that's something you don't have to do now. Whoever is the outside service would be paying those bills and then being reimbursed by the state.
I think where, for example, one of the bidders, Cafe Services, did say that they would, come in with a guarantee. So although they said that they would operate the program at a deficit, I believe it was $9,200, that 92 wouldn't be any larger than $9,200.
So anything over
They would
92.
have to absorb the rest, right.
Right.
The other two bidders did not include a guarantee.
It's interesting.
Do we have all the supplies in order to start back again? I know that each of the,
The inventory always remains the property of the school district.
right, but I know that they brought some with them that they would be taking.
It was very minimal.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nothing.
and we
couldn't live
actually
without.
paid for that, serving dishes and things like that. We paid for that.
So, they're ours.
Okay.
I just don't recall any information that made its way back to the board that we did not have a good experience with Cafe Services. I don't remember that. I look to the principals that were here, I know that you weren't, Ms. Richardson, really towards the tail end, I guess, but, I mean, we had Cafe Services, which was managed, Josh, I think Appleby or something.
Appleby, yeah.
I mean, I guess I always assumed, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but that was a pretty good experience. Our employees seemed to be happy with it. Am I wrong? I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm getting to is I'm not gonna support an in-house thing. The last year that we did it, we were in the whole 70 grand. I just, I think that it's not a wise financial decision to go in-house again. That's just my personal opinion. But we have a motion and a second, right? Do we have?
For discussion?
Did we get one for discussion? I don't know, did we?
No,
Yeah.
we didn't.
Did we get one? We didn't get one, but we don't have a motion yet. We had a presentation.
Shoot. Okay, well, I move to accept the recommendation for discussion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it for
Second
discussion.
for discussion.
So just to be clear, the recommendation was to bring it in-house.
Mhm.
So along the lines of that guarantee, what if what if we go with Fresh Picks, meaning everybody says no to my motion, and they actually enjoy greater sales? Are we still on the hook to pay this $9,200 deficit? Okay.
That
No,
is
'cause it
based
would
upon
be
what
a
their
deficit.
projected budget and expenses are. So if it's $9,200 in our favor, that belongs to the Farmington School District.
And that's basically because of the way we are the fiscal agent, it wouldn't.
Correct. So because they're already going to get paid through their administrative and their management fee.
Right.
I think it's important to note too that we have some staff members that left working for Chartwell's and went to work for Cafe Services because they were so impressed with working for that company.
That is, yes.
One in particular was someone was an 18-year veteran of the district. So that, I mean, that says something to me, you know? That says something to me.
I'm just having a hard time coming to any conclusion on this, because unfortunately, the numbers don't exactly match, and I think a lot of this is based upon history. which you guys have and I don't, so I'm just trying to listen and absorb. You did say that you weren't for in-house, Mr. Shagnon, but I'd like to know if you have a preference of the other three.
Well, I have a preference for cafe services because in essence, we really know what we're getting. They were here with us for 2 years. I just tried to poll the administrators that were here. Did we have any major issues? They're shaking their head no. We had a fairly positive experience with them. And yeah, we went from 69 in the hole to what did we have to, what was the return that you
I think that we received a check, I think it was 33,000.
Yeah.
That we received a check
Made money.
at the end of the first year.
1 year.
Even though they're projecting a deficit?
That was, he was referring to 2014.
Oh, but did,
Yeah, their
in the
first
beginning
year.
of that year, did they project a deficit and,
They did not.
no?
They did not. I would really have to do some digging through my computer
No,
to
no, that's
pull up those.
Do you want to allow public comment?
I'll allow it. I normally would not allow public comment because we've already had it. I mean, is it a point that you can make at public participation, or is it something you feel we need to hear before we vote on it?
Just wanted to talk about the kids.
Yeah, why don't you go up to this microphone, Patty, because it's more of a public thing and less of a staff presentation.
We'll go together.
Please.
It's my old age. Okay. We just want to talk about the kids for a minute and the difference between the programs that are bidded on, is that the correct, and the in-house program. We both do lunch duty every single day. And the kids, one of the problems, this isn't a huge problem, but one of the problems is we have a lot of kids sometimes that don't have money to buy food. So her and I typically will buy a kid a lunch. But if we buy it, we have to pay the adult price, not the kid price. So, I mean, I literally watched them take a sandwich away from a kid last week. What were they going to do with it? They were going to throw it away. I bought the kid her lunch. That's not even, okay. The other thing, too, is these kids are forced to take, I'm going to use the fruit example. They're forced to take a piece of fruit that was part of the program. You bought lunch, you took the fruit, and it mostly all, and I would say about 85% of it, got dumped. And finally, we came up with a little bit of a program where if the kids didn't want their fruit, as long as they brought it to us before it was taken to the table, we could in turn give it to the nurse and she could give it to kids who were hungry. So the waste of food, the waste is phenomenal. What you see those kids throw out is unbelievable. And when
Forced to take it.
right, and when we had in-house, there was waste too, don't get me wrong. But those women made homemade stuff for those kids, and, you know, they had things like chili. You can make a healthy chili. They loved the chili. They never get chili anymore. You can buy hot dogs that are better than, you know, the little cheap ones that are a little healthier, and they love them. You have, everything is made on wheat. And I don't know if that would have to go for the regular program too. But I think they should be able to have a choice.
But isn't it safe to say that a lot of the in-house people that worked for us as our employees back in 2013 or 12 maintained their employment status here with cafe services?
Yes.
They only recently left.
But what do you do when you need a job? You either have a choice to go and try to find something after 18 years of service,
Yeah.
or you just join the forces.
You join the forces, but then you leave when they left. They went with them. Several went with them. So that tells me they liked working for that company.
Well, they may have. And I'm not saying the company wasn't. That guy, what was his name? You said his name.
Yeah.
He was a nice guy. He was a wonderful person. So I don't have anything to say about the people. It's just, I know a lot of it's policy, but those kids should come first in anybody's eyes. And that's all I'm saying. You know, that's, You know, if they want to have, my boys came through the system, they were fed well enough at home. They wanted a cookie, have a damn cookie. You know, I don't understand a lot of it. Since when did we become their babysitters and their nutritionists? You know, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry if I...
No, it's fine, that's nice to hear. I mean, you know, my mom was a lunch lady under an in-house
Yes.
program for 21 years. But at the same time, you have to make sometimes, they're not always the most popular decisions.
Right.
When you're bleeding 69 grand, you know, you gotta make a decision that I felt we made it was a financial decision. But I'm not hearing that anything got real bad until very recently.
Right, and I think you would have to go to talk to the kids about that. That's what I'm saying. I think they would tell you how they feel. And some of them, you know, they're just glad to have something in front of them to eat.
And I think you know who those kids are when you know, see them when they're not eating. You know, you pick up on that, you know, very quickly. And when it was in-house, we were able to know, if I saw a child not eating, I could go up and say, I don't see so-and-so with a lunch today, like, do they owe money or, you know, whatever. And we used to be able to know that. But now if we ask that, they can't tell us anything because it's all private now. So if this person does get reduced lunch, I don't know, so now I'm buying him a lunch, and I don't mind doing it, and none of us mind doing it because we don't want that child to go hungry. And so at the end of the school year, my husband would say, so what was our bill this year? And I would just laugh because he knows it's ongoing, these are our kids.
And I will say that federal regulations don't allow us to say that whether it's in-house or not. So
And I
that
think
part is.
Right, and I think maybe because it was in-house, and Joel, just like you said, your mom worked there, we knew the kids. And it was pretty much, you know, the respect that, I know you're not going to say anything, so yes, John does, so. And we were able to put money on that child's account so that we would make sure that child ate for that month, knowing that the parents were struggling. So there's a lot of things now that we, you know, aren't able to do that we, you know, that we want to do. But, and so, thanks for listening. And I'm
Yeah,
sorry
no,
that
thank
we're
you.
over there looking at each other going,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for discussion at least to go with an in-house proposal. Any other discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed?
I don't know.
Is there another motion?
A motion to move forward with cafe services.
A motion to move forward with cafe services proposal.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cardinal. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, when I took a look at the numbers that you listed off for the last 4 years of the in-house, it averages $36,000 a year. Average, and where Fresh Picks is, cafe services is guaranteeing the deficit won't be more than $9,200. 4X, you know?
Okay, any other questions on that? All those in favor? Aye. All right. Public participation.
Thank you, ladies, for putting all your effort into that, too. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I think it was good information.
Can I just say one other thing? I think a lot of the things that you remember of how it used to be and how it is now, it is all a lot driven by the federal regulations. And we rely heavily on the free and reduced reimbursement for our kids. So I don't disagree with anything you're saying, or think that anything isn't important that you were saying personally. I just know, yes, those are all kind of realities for every school district now that participates. in the
And it's
federal
so
program.
confidential now that I don't think even when I was a principal, I had access to that information. It was like 2 people in the whole
There-
district.
It's the,
And it's for the
it's
children's
the
protection.
Title I director, the superintendent, and the one who does the actual inputting of the free and reduced lunch. Those are the only people who are supposed to have access to. The people standing at the cash register actually don't see that piece. It just rings. So, or doesn't, as the case may be.
But to
All right.
follow that up, actually, if I may.
Yeah.
I do just want to thank you both. I mean, you did mention that you go out of your way and you actually identify the children that are hungry and you actually step up and you pay for their lunches, and I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for that. That is very nice of you.
Our next meeting is scheduled for June 19th at 6:30. Go to graduation, folks. To me, it's the highlight event of any year, to watch the culmination of 12, and in some cases, more, 12-plus years of hard work. So, graduation's probably my favorite event of the year. All right, so I will entertain a motion to go, and thank you for those of you viewing from home, and thank you to those of you who came out tonight. I'll entertain a motion to go into non-public for a student issue. I think we still have a student issue or so to deal with.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Cardinal, a second by Mrs. McElhenney. All those in favor by roll? Aye.
Is that
Thank you.
session 3, Kelly?
Thank you.